Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 16th of July, and we've got two things to do today. The first is a preview of the weekend racing. I think I've found two or three possible winners for you. And also looking at the subject, who wrote the Bible on horse racing? A few words on that, if you'd like to have a listen, and I'm sure you will. Anyway, so let's get started on the weekend, okay? And what I'm looking at the weekend, first of all, last race at Rosehill, number 8, fully lit. I've got that rated $3.80, even though it ran nowhere last start, and it was on a slow track. Now, it's had very little experience on a good track. It is a leader. It's Gay Waterhouse, often they're leaders, and they can get reasonably good results. So you can see here it's only had one run on a good track, didn't run anywhere. Slow and heavy it's raced, okay? The next horse in the field is Olsen Boy, and you can see it's also a leader, which is going to make it very interesting, but has 9 wins from 29 starts. And at this distance, 9 starts for 5 wins. Has had quite a break. It came back first up. It gave a reasonable performance there. Something went wrong, obviously, and now it's restarted on the 14th of June. Led beaten 4 lengths. Led was second at the turn and beaten 4.7 lengths. Obviously going to be getting slightly better as we go on. And we'll race over 1300, which is 5 times one at that distance. Okie dokies. So we can look at those couple, and also Cloudland. It's Chris Lee's horse, and it came from the clouds last start and won at quite a good price, $21. Okay, it's also second up. It should probably go okay. It says here second up at 6 starts for a winner, second and a third. Has a 30% win and 65% place. So we've got the last leg of the quaddie looked after. We go back to race 9 now. And I can't complain about this one because this was our top rated horse a couple of weeks ago. It was good to be on it in the quaddie, but didn't get the other legs and didn't back it deliberately first myself. Anyway, it goes best on a good track, and that's what we're probably looking at this weekend. So I'm going to be on a start over Stalia for sure. And we've also got Robusto and what is it? Saltcoats. Okay, in that race. And in race 8, what are we looking at here? 1100. Plenty of chances in that race. And in race 7, we come back here, and that one's over 2400, but it's only a benchmark 78. I don't particularly like anything or not like anything in the race, but if you're going purely on ratings, you'll be on number 6 and number 10 with a saver or a smaller bet on 4 and 5. I don't know, Naval Commission, I've been on it a few times, haven't been successful yet. However, let's go to Flemington now. And just looking at the last race, which is race 9, wide open race as far as I can see. Okay, we've got 2, 5, 15 up there. Nothing particular I can say about any of them, but you can see that this particular horse here, on consensus, would be a top rated horse. And of course, Craig William is very close to winning the Jockeys Premiership this year. In race 8, we've got another couple of interesting runners. So Flash Feeling, Amber Light and Little Mix, they're the top 3 in there. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of opposition there. I would hope that one of those possibly could get up. And in race 7, we can see we've got the 8-year-old Hopeful here, but the thing what you've got to consider here is it is an Irish bred horse, and consequently on their scale it's really only a 7-year-old. However, the detriment is that it's only won 6 of its 40 races, and most of those have been on damp tracks. I'm expecting it to be probably a good track on Saturday is my best guess, with a sprinkle of rain, but nothing special. And this is 2,800 metres, so it's a very unusual distance, but this horse has always done well over distances. So there it's wins at 2,400, 2,200, 2,000 and so on. Okay, we look at the next horse, which is Roaring Engine, has had 2 starts from a spell. And over the 2500 at Flemington here, it ran a 66.5 for us, which is a pretty good rating. And it's a -3 as its class value. It's going up to a -0.3. But nevertheless, ran well to run 4th and 13th starters first up. Didn't do anything on the heavy track, but you can see here is desperately looking for a good track. Our next runner, as you can see here, 6 wins from 19 starts, and this is looking a little bit better. So I'm looking at the runs here. It ran a 76. That was in Ballarat back on the 17th of December. It would have been a lightning fast track, I imagine. Listed as a good 3. You don't often see those, but prefers a good track, as I said. Our last start was second, only beaten less than half a length, over 2600. That was a class value of 2. This time it's a class value of -0.3, so it's actually down in class for us for this week. So we know that it can run a fast time if it needs to. It does race on the pace, and we're just hoping over the 2800. Actually, I've got to be honest, I thought it was going to win last start, and it just missed. Anyway, so that's all the information I have there. Now, you remember who wrote the Racing Bible? Well, for a starter, the person who wrote the Racing Bible was the person who wrote the GTX program and organised it in the first place. And unfortunately, he passed away now, but he wrote it way back in the 60s. It was a fabulous book. I read it several times over and over again. I couldn't work it out at first, but anyway, it didn't end up carrying on because it relates entirely to weight ratings, and the class of races changed dramatically over years. In the 80s, Don Scott brought out a book based on his experiences in punting, one of the first major professional punters in Australia in the modern era. And Don Scott wrote his books, and he said, look, the weight is the key, weight and class, and that's what you have to look for. And he was the first person, for example, to have a photographer at every 200 metres of a race, so that he was able to track which horses were in what position over all the race meetings. So the thing that was his key was the data that he kept. And because he had the only database in Australia virtually that punters could access to, well, they couldn't access to them unless they got Don Scott's ratings and got the results of his selections. But one thing he determined, he said, whatever you do not consider the speed of a horse. You'll end up going a broke. It has no relevance at all. Okay, so there we go. We've got 2 people who wrote basically Bibles of horse racing for their period. And there was another newcomer, a lot younger person, who in the late 80s created a book called Racing Pays. I wrote that book, and it's the definitive book on racing ratings determined by a number of things. More correct weight ratings for a starter. When I say weight ratings, I'm talking about how much weight equals whatever margin, and how it changes over different race distances. It's something that the other people never took into account of, because obviously the amount of weight a horse is going to carry is going to get heavier the further you go. If you just want to try that out, grab a couple of bricks in your hand and run around the sports ground and see how you go after 2 or 3 runs around. You'll definitely be getting a lot slower with that extra weight. Oh, you could put on a backpack and put on about 20 bricks in that. That'd slow you down even further. So it's very easy to work out, yes, weight does make a difference. However, it's just not as big a difference as what was made out. Okay, so I decided that I put in the new weight scales, and those new weight scales work. I'm the one who studied every racetrack in Australia and worked out the difference in speed at various tracks. Now, yes, you're going to say the grass was short, the grass was long, the grass was wet, the grass was dry. Yes, there are varying distances, and those differences are built into the GTX program that you see here. So we can work those things out, and guess what? It doesn't get you all the winners. It doesn't. But what it does get you is winners that pay a superior price. So it's all very well with your favourites getting up and paying a dividend of about $3 and you get a good strike rate, all good. And the pricing can be very competitive. But the reality is that when I get my ratings done, if you're looking at the top two there, okay, those two top horses in every race, you're going to be looking at a strike rate of only 33% of races, usually about somewhere between 18 and 20% for the top rated horse. But the difference is between those two runners, you're going to get an average dividend of at least $5.50, and mostly more than that, because the longer price runners, and especially the ones in certain barriers, once they get out a bit, are going to pay more dividends, because the horses in outer barriers, they give you a longer price because they feel you've got less chance of winning. Now, I've got barrier stats. I'm just sending out a book for a client today who's looking at the barrier stats for the first time. And as I said to his daughter, who was buying it for her father, I said, I know you're not interested in racing. I said, but your dad's going to look at this and he's going to say, hey, look at this statistic. They say that the barriers, 1, 2, 3 or 4 are the barriers where you get the most winners. And yet here at one particular racetrack, there were 40 losers in a row that came out of barrier 2. So one of the most favourable barriers of all, barrier 2, 40 losers at that particular distance at that track in a row. And still even today only get a very, very small strike rate. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. So my Bible, Racing Pays, and many people wrote to me and said, I treat your book on horse racing as my Bible, and that's why the differences are there. So I wrote it, nobody else can contest it. And I just hope you follow what I say, because I'm in sort of semi-retirement and you never know, I could get knocked over tomorrow. So you better buy one of my books so the information stays there for you. And if you want to get the best information, the Winform GTX program's available. You can look up on the website, and I'll just show you where that is. I'll get out of that now and go to the website. It'll be here somewhere. It might even come out if the internet is working today, which it often isn't here for some particular reason. Okay, this is the website. Come on. It actually looks and tells me that it's about horse racing, so we're warning you about that. That's why it takes time to decide that it's fair enough to the... Oh, they've got to be kidding. Okay, I can't show you that. Bad luck. There it is. Okay, nothing happening today. I'll put that in today. Nothing happening. That's in the diary, but I put something up virtually every day or every second day. And there we are up where I put up the videos, but subscribe anyway. You'll get all the information. And for staking, just click on that one there, and that'll take you to where you can get all the staking plans. Thank you for watching if you've gone this far.